Chatters. You want to do a little whip and chat? Been a minute since we did a whip and chat. I was starting to work on this one last night, got most of it done because it's, partial. They tend to go pretty quick. I thought I would hold off on finishing it completely and use the little bit I had left to do the little whip and chat about what all happened with my grandma, the grandma story. Before I do that, I thought I would talk about, if you've seen this one online, I've seen this one online in a partial and as a full drill. And if you've seen the partial, I just wanted to talk about some of the edits I made because this is supposed to be a full, well, not a full crystal as far as full drill, but entirely crystal. And when I started looking at some of the crystal colors they were suggesting, some of the colors, with this particular theme, with the grandparents, and everything being crystal, when I started thinking about it, it just felt kind of like overkill to me to have everything crystal. So I made some edits just to calm it down a little bit because I do like sparkly, but I like sparkly that makes sense. So yeah, her grandma's hair over here was originally supposed to be, I think this, hopefully it shows up on camera, it's like a really light blue color. It's actually blue. And yeah, that was the first thing where I was like, I don't know if I want blue crystal. I mean, I get it because she's a grandma, the joke about having blue hair, but yeah, I don't know if I like literally want blue hair on her though. So what I ended up deciding to do is I went into my stash of gray spares and I did a little bit of shading work on her. So I did the darker gray in the back and then gave her some lighter gray highlights, which is kind of how my mom used to have her hair when she used to go to the salon with me. And so these are the two colors I used. I don't remember what this one is. I want to say it's maybe 318, like a shade of 318, but I didn't mark it from a long time ago, so I'm not entirely sure. But this is a version of 762 gray. So that's what I did do her hair. Grandpa's hair and beard were all in white crystal. That's what they were originally graphed. And again, I was like, that's a lot. So instead, I decided to use just, I have a whole bunch of the, what is it, the 3865, just that like soft white that tends to come in all kinds of kits. I have a bunch of that, so that's what I used on his hair and mustache. And I also did the outlining on their shoes, the edges in that 3865, because again, that was supposed to be clear crystal. And I did give Grandpa a little bit of snazz on his laces there, because I was thinking, like, you look at the way the Grandpa is here, like at first he seems like he might be a little bit uptight, a little bit of a grumpy Gus. But if you look at how he's got his ears, like I think they're supposed to just be indentations in the earlobes, but it kind of gives the look of him almost having like earring holes or maybe even earplug holes. So you never know. You never know what Grandpa's story is. He could have had a whole past, probably does, that you have no idea about. So yeah, I thought I would give him just a little pizzazz. Because also I just got done doing the jeans on them, and the jeans were, what did I do with those extras? Hold on just a second. I think the jeans were supposed to be in this super light blue. But again, I've just felt like jeans all over the crystals was going to be a bit much. And I think they were also supposed to be on the shoes. The shoes on Grandma, I ended up doing just a blue, the Diamond Dots blue AB that comes in their AB sets. I used that on her shoes instead of crystal because I like the look of it a little bit better. And I also did the AB white on her laces, but then just the plain white on the edges. And then I did use the crystal from the kit on Grandpa's vest. That is included. And this, the shirt was also supposed to be clear crystal, but this was another little bit of gray random I had in my gray spares that I thought would work as a shirt. And I kind of like how it turns out, because up against the brown crystal, it gives a little bit of texture illusion. So I like how that worked. The doorway I did as graft. The edges of the boxes I did as graft. I just put on these little diamond clusters here. These are supposed to be Amazon boxes behind them. I mean, you can see the little, let's see if I can find a box. See, like it's like an AI version of, but because it, you know, that's all blurred out there, but you can recognize the Amazon swoop there. But I was laughing a little bit because doesn't that look like the Walmart logo? Walmart logo on the Amazon boxes? I don't know. I went with it though. I think those are all the changes I made. So basically I was just doing that so that it would just be a little bit more balanced. I think everything else I'm going to leave as is. I mean, there's only like 3 colors left. But yeah, I just wanted to go over that. So in case if you get this one, you're not going to be like, wait, I got completely different drills. No, you probably got the same drills. I just, for my personal preferences, when I started looking at it, all the crystal work, I was like, that's a lot for my eyes. That looks very busy. So yeah, just to tone it down, make it a little bit softer on the eyes. I'm going to go ahead and leave Grandma very crystallified because she, like, between the two expressions between them, she gives me the impression that, you know, she's very, like, a big lover of Quacker Factory, I'm sure. And I don't know, he seems like he has a little bit more quiet swag to him. So that's why I just kept it to like the laces and his crystal vest there. So yeah, we're gonna carry on and bling out Grandma, get her all suited up, and I'm gonna tell you the story of what happened to my grandma and what transpired after I got that text from my brother that said, oh hey, Grandma's in the hospital and it's bad but manageable, I think. And I was like, what does that mean? And then of course, as comforting as those things tend to go, the rest of the day I had a hard time getting a hold of him, which is, you know, I don't blame him for that because he was at the hospital with my grandma the whole time. So what ended up happening was the fall that set all this off actually happened the night before or the afternoon before the big earthquake in San Diego went off. That's where my brother lives with my grandma as her primary, I say caretaker. That seems like a very hard term. I mean, my grandma is 99, I guess. I've been saying she's 98, but according to my brother, I guess I missed a birthday somewhere in there and she's actually 99. But the whole time, she's always lived in the same house I've always known my entire life as her house. It's a house in San Diego and this plays into the fall. But it's a house in San Diego that's one of those historic houses. It's really old. I think it was originally built in 1921 or 22, I think Grandma told me at some point. And it's, as a grandparent's house tends to go, my grandparents didn't do a lot of updates from the time they bought it back in the late 70s. They did little things here and there, and there were things obviously that, you know, structurally needed to be updated, and you know, like energy wise things were upgraded and things like that, but the overall style of the house they kept pretty historic. There a lot of things in the kitchen haven't really been too updated since like the 90s, as I'm sure, you know, a lot of people have that experience with their grandparents' house, because both my both my grandparents have that very, well, I say it like they're still around. This grandma that I'm going to be talking about, she's my last living grandparent. My grandpa passed in 2008, I think it was. her husband. And my other grandma, my dad's mom, passed away during COVID of, from what I understand, it was a combination of complications from, she was in my dad's mom was in a home during COVID, like a, like a group home, is that the term? Like for elderly people, because she was suffering from a certain degree of dementia. So from what I understand, they said it was a combination of COVID and dementia symptoms that caused her death. So yeah, my grandma now that I'm talking about is my last living grandparent. And she's lived in this same house since the 70s, late 70s. This was the house my grandpa bought as like their retirement house after he had a long career in the Navy and the Pentagon and all that. The story my grandma told me is that he basically came home when he was getting ready to retire. He came home one day and just told her, yeah, start looking, start picking out a house. Because the majority of their life they had always lived in military housing and low income housing and all that kind of stuff, and grandpa had over time been putting little by little away, and by the time he got to retirement in the 70s, he was just like, I'm ready to go. I got the money stashed, you go pick out a house, I don't care, I'll live wherever, whatever makes you happy, just find something. And so this house she lives in now is the one she settled on, and it's like I said, I believe it was built back in 1921. So the flooring in that house is primarily, I don't know if it's all, like parts of it are original to the build and then other parts have been upgraded but look to be what was originally put in the house. They try to match it as close as possible. So a lot of the hardwood, the flooring is mainly actual hardwoods, and then that like terracotta style clay flooring in some of like the doorways in the kitchen and stuff. From what I understand, my grandma tends to spend a lot of her time now in her bedroom area, and her day-to-day is like she likes holding up in her room a lot and watching Netflix on her iPad. And my brother said that, I think it was towards the afternoon, evening, something like that, she had mentioned that she was getting a little hungry, and she tends to eat like a bird, so they don't have like set meals or anything. It's just, yeah, she mentions when she's getting a little snacky and then he makes her something. So it got to be that time of day, and he fixed her a little something to eat, and she was curled up in bed like usual. And he said that he went to bring the snack in and set it on her side table by her bed, and then she mentioned that she needed to go to the bathroom. So she got up, and because my grandma's, I think that I got sidetracked. What I was trying to say with all this is that I got sidetracked with the caretaker comment. What I was gonna say about all this is that my grandma is still very, as much as she can be, she's very active still. I mean, for a 99-year-old, like she's not out there running or anything, but like she's still able to move pretty easily on her own in general, and she tends to fend for herself best she can. She's not like immobile, she doesn't have dementia, anything like that. You know, naturally she's a little bit slower getting around the house, and she doesn't drive anymore and that kind of thing. So that's why my brother ended up moving in with her a while back, so that somebody could be there full time, and like, you know, she would never have to live in a home or anything like that. She can be in her own home. So yeah, that's why I just say, for ease of a term, I just say like caretaker. You know, he does what my grandpa used to do, as far as like go get the groceries, go get the car serviced, go run any errands my grandma needs to do, all that kind of stuff that my grandpa used to be there for. And so yeah, my brother went in with her snack he had made her, and was starting to head out, but then while she was in the bathroom, or she was in the bathroom for just a minute, and then the door opened, and he said like she had a little bit of a weird look on her face, and then she just collapsed and hit the floor between the bathroom door and like the it's hard to describe this because nobody knows what my grandma's house looks like but me. But there's a good amount of space between, you know, she has one of those in-suite bathrooms, so there's a good amount of space between the door and one side of the bed, and then like to the left is a dresser. My grandparents don't have a lot of stuff. Like the house is not huge. It's decent sized. It's not a tiny house or anything, but it's not huge, and my grandparents are not hoarder types. They live pretty minimally, very simply. So it's not like there's a lot of stuff in the room. So there wasn't a lot to break her fall. She has carpet, like, you know, not carpet, but like, what do you call them? Like area rugs. She has area rugs in her room. And I guess wherever she fell, it only caught like the corner of the area rug. So the impact was mostly on the hardwood floor. And it all happened so fast that, you know, my brother, he was, I guess, too far away. He couldn't like catch her or anything. So yeah, she hit the floor. And he said that she, you know, she never lost consciousness or anything. And he said that she just kind of muttered, "Ow, that hurt." And, you know, it sounds bad that I'm laughing. And my brother, you know, he said he tried to hold back a laugh. But it's not that we're cold-blooded. It's just that it's a thing in our family that the women in our family are I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what about our ancestors, but like it's sort of a trait in our family that our family tends to breed women that are tough as hell. Like, you wouldn't like look at the women in our family and naturally assume that because we're not like, you know, overly butch or anything like that. A lot of us are very like, you know, we have very like soft features. We have very like nurturing personalities and everything. But if you were to hear our individual life stories, you'd be like, damn. And my grandma's no exception, you know, and her being like the matriarch of the family. My grandma's been through some shit. I mean, you know, she survived a world war and all that. And, you know, she had 10 kids and, you know, like she's had some life. And, you know, before all this, like years before, my grandma's had multiple heart attacks and come through every one of them. And the last big one she had, where she was telling me the story herself, where the doctor had to put like 4 stents in her heart. And the joke was that when my grandma was in the hospital recovering from that, the nurses were cracking up because she was commenting that she was annoyed by all this more than anything because she remembered she had stuff in the dryer. And she's like, I'm gonna have to do it all over again. And it's like, most people would be in the hospital and be like, oh my god, I thought I was gonna die. And my grandma's sitting there going, I have stuff in the dryer, I need to go. Just handle this and get it over with. So like, that's just the type of personality that our family tends to breed in the women for some reason. Is just like, I don't have time for this shit, just move on. So that's why my brother was trying not to laugh, because he knew it was serious and he was definitely scared for her, but just at the same time he was kind of laughing at that, like her toughness was still coming through, like, oh, that hurt. But she got it back up on her own for the most part, he said. And he was saying, you know, he was doing the whole thing of like, I'm going to go call somebody. And she was fighting him on it, going, no, I don't want to go to the hospital, because she's, you know, one of those people that hates hospitals. And he was trying, but she was really fighting him on it. So he's like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I just want to lay back down. And she said, my head hurts a little bit, but it's all right. I'm just going to, you know, lay down and, you know, sleep it off or something. And so he spent the rest of the night keeping an eye on her, and he was like, all right, maybe she's fine. Maybe it was just a slight fall. I don't know. So he went to bed eventually in the middle of the night after she fell asleep. And when he got back up the next day, she was sitting up in bed and she was saying, my head and my chest have really started to hurt. And he was like, all right, well, that's it. I'm calling people over. And she was fighting him a little bit, but he's like, no, we have to make sure something's not up. And so he called the EMTs over, and they did an initial exam on him, like, they do with house calls, and decided or talked her into her getting examined at the hospital. So they put her up on the gurney, get her into the ambulance, take her over to the hospital. My brother follows over in the car, and that starts the whole day. And this is the day of the big San Diego earthquake that was in the news. That starts the whole day of the the hospital experience. So then he's telling me, in the process of checking her out, and I think they also examined her to make sure, because they weren't sure what caused the fall exactly, so they were testing her for signs of a heart attack and all that kind of stuff, and they couldn't find any reason for that. But they said in the process of examining her for all kinds of stuff, no surprise, she said her chest was hurting. It turned out she had a busted sternum, cracked sternum, and they said her neck was technically broken. So, talking about tough-ass women, my grandma basically went back to bed, continued watching Netflix until she fell asleep with a broken neck. And, I don't know, some people might listen to this and be like, oh my God, your brother is terrible. But, it can be a tough call to make, because, like, if he had seen anything where, because he was telling me he did all the checks he knew to check. He checked her pupils. He checked for, if she was coherent. He did the finger test on her, like, how many fingers am I holding up? He did, like, coherency test of, like, what's the date, what's your name, all that kind of stuff. Like, all the things that any EMT would do generally, as far as, like, real quick assessments. And my brother's not even a medic. He's just like, he knows that stuff because our dad was a medic. And so he knows the tests to start with. And he was doing all that, and he said she was answering everything perfectly fine, and he was worried, but also, he also wants to give my grandma as much independence as a person as possible. So he's like, I didn't want to push it. Like, if she doesn't want to go, I don't want to just, like, throw her over my back and take her over there. Because he's like, I don't know, maybe she was fine. I don't know. But as soon as he got up the next morning and saw that she was still in discomfort, he immediately was over on the phone calling people over to come move her to the hospital and have her checked out. So, yeah, for anybody that's like, oh God, your brother doesn't care. No, we very much care about our family. But yeah, that's what was going down on the hospital. And I'm sure, knowing him, I'm sure there was part of him that felt really bad about that. But like I said, like, she was acting completely coherent. Wasn't giving any indication that would have been the case, because some bone breaks are like that. Like, you can walk around with little fractures in your body and not know about it for a long time, if they're minute enough. And my grandma had already had history of a neck injury, because she had another incident some months after my grandpa had passed. My grandma, I think this was going on, I think it had been about 6 months after my grandpa had passed. My grandma was still struggling with him not being there. And so one of my grandma's friends came over to the house and was like, look, can I just, because my grandma had done the holing up thing and mourning her husband and everything, natural behavior for losing your best friend partner. And one of her best friends came over and said, look, let me just get you out of the house for a little bit. Let's go to dinner. Let's have some drinks and some laughs and all that. Did that whole thing with her. And when my grandma told me that story, she had said that the whole night they were fine. They were having a great time. She was feeling much better. And then they had gone, it was weird because they had gone down to, I think it was one of the, fine dining places down on Shelter Island. And Shelter Island is, if you've never been there, it's one of the, it's I don't want to say like it's elite or anything. Like plenty of people can go down there without having a ton of money, but a lot of the businesses over there do tend to cater to people who are, in San Diego for tourism reasons and are vacationing. And so a lot of the restaurants and everything down there cater more to fine dining and yachting experience and all that stuff. So they weren't in like a rough part of town. They had gone to, I think, one of the nicer seafood places down there to have like, a nice dinner and drinks and stuff. And they were coming out of the restaurant and were just talking on the way back to the car. And my grandma said these two guys were, they weren't in a fight or anything. They were just being kind of rambunctious or something. I don't know. You know the way like young guys are in a parking lot sometimes where they get really hyper and they're they're bros and everything and are pushing each other back and forth and all that. Well, something like that was going on. My grandma got caught in the crossfire kind of, and she got slammed into the back of a pickup truck. And my grandma's not a tall person. She's only, well, now she's only like barely 5 feet. I don't think, because there's also a thing in our family with like women getting to I think it starts pretty noticeably once we tend to get in, it's just the women for some reason, we tend to get in our 30s and the shrinkage happens. Where it happened to my mom, where when I was growing up, my mom was 5'9", and by the time my mom had passed, she was closer to like 5'7". And then it happened to me. When I was measured in junior high, they told me I was 5'7". And then when I got measured again in my 20s and 30s, I was always told I was 5'6". The last time I got measured at the doctors, they told me I don't even clear 5'6" anymore, that I'm like 5'5" now, or like 5'5" and a half. So the shrinkage apparently is happening in me too. But with my grandma, most of the time I knew her growing up, she was about 5'2". Now I think she's closer to like 5 foot. So the way she hit the back of the pickup truck door, it hit her in an area that did some sort of compression or something on part of her neck that she went through all kinds of therapy for, and they were never able to entirely fix it for some reason. So she had that whole history of that. So that could be why she wouldn't have even noticed anything wrong with her neck per se, because she had that whole history of that back there. The one thing that they did find treatment for in that particular injury that seemed to help is, oddly enough, she went to a doctor that suggested her getting Botox shots in her neck. And I went to a few of my grandma's doctor's appointments where she was getting the injections done, and I used to joke with her when she'd come back out, where I'm like, oh, look at this sexy neck. He's like, you feel that much younger? And she would always shake her head, where she's just like, I feel so stupid taking Botox. I'm like, no, it's trendy now. But yeah, so she never got it in her face, but she would get it put in her neck because she was getting to the point where she couldn't lift her head that well anymore. That's how much the injury pressure had caused damage. So yeah, that could be why they didn't initially catch like her or my brother or the EMTs looking at her. They didn't catch anything that would cause suspicion in that department. They only caught it when they were scanning her for other stuff. So yeah, that was kind of funny that, well, not funny, but like, not funny humorous, but funny weird, that you know, grandma would wake up and be like, I feel a little bit off. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that's because your neck and your sternum are busted. So that's going to do that. So yeah, she was getting looked at for that. And then I don't know what else they were looking for, but one of the other tests, she went to another specialist that day or something. Somebody else looked at her, and then yeah, one of the other scans showed that apparently she had a massive blood clot in one of her legs that probably wouldn't have been caught if this fall hadn't happened. I don't know if it was like, you know, one of those like widowmaker type clots. I don't know how long it had been in there, but yeah, from what I was told by my brother, the doctor that found it said it was pretty sizable. But yeah, they're going to be able to treat that now. I think I'd made a community post the other day where I was talking about my brother being in the hospital building with my grandma when the earthquake hit, and he mentioned that he felt the tremors in the hospital building and the building sway a little bit. And then one of the specialists they wanted my grandma to see, they said, was on the 7th floor. And one of the things they teach you when you're growing up in San Diego, because it's like, you know, I think every region you live in, anywhere, it all comes with its specific regional disaster that you're just sort of prepped for. You know, like when I was growing up in San Diego, it was earthquakes. When I moved to Texas for a few years, it was tornadoes. When I lived briefly down in Florida for a little bit, it was more like hurricanes, naturally. So it depends on where you're living, what kind of disaster you're sort of prepped for. So yeah, it's funny because like when I was a kid, because I was still a teenager when I lived in Texas for a little bit, and when I had transferred high schools wasn't mid-year, but it was like I went from I did 10th grade in California, and then 11th and 12th grade in Texas. Texas high school would do tornado drills, and a few times we actually had, you know, this is not a warning or this is not a test, get in the hallway type scenarios. I remember a couple times we had where the tornado had been spotted and it had like just missed our town or something like that. But I remember one of the times we were in the hallway of the high school, and I was kind of freaking out because I had never experienced tornadoes before. And some of the kids around me, because I was still pretty new to the school, they were like, well, didn't you say you were from San Diego? And like, isn't an earthquake way scarier? And you know, I was telling this to my brother the other day, where I was just like, people seem to have that perception that oh god, wouldn't an earthquake be way scarier? Hell no. It's like, and maybe that's because we were raised with that we're not immediately freaked out by an earthquake, because it was just part of the environment. So I'm sure it's kind of the same thing with like if you think about people that live in Australia, like people that don't live in Australia, we always talk about like, how do you live there with all those creepy animals? But like people that live there, they don't think about it with like the the spiders the size of hubcaps just chilling in your living room. They're just like, oh yeah, those are part of the world. Yeah, no, we don't worry about it. But, you know, we'll see a video of it over here, not on that continent, and be like, oh my god. Because it'll look like it's been, you know, tampered with digitally. But they're like, nope, that's what they look like. It kind of also reminds me of when some of my friends in the military would send me pictures of like the... are they called camel spiders? Is that the name of them? The big desert sand colored spiders that they would find over there. Yeah, they would send me pictures of those just to kindly freak me out. Because I haven't seen any of those in person either, but any pictures I've seen, I'm like, ah! But again, I'm sure people over there are like, oh yeah, those, yeah, be careful out there. It also just reminded me of scorpions. I just thought of, because I've mentioned I grew up in high desert. I see these Instagram photos sometimes where people, or Instagram reels or something like that, where people will show hiking adventures they go on, and I will recognize the West Coast mountains in the background, but you'll see people that are in like short shorts, just legs all exposed, out in desert terrain. And that's my first thought when I see people going out in high desert terrain in shorts. I'm just immediately like, okay, did you not read up on rattlesnakes and scorpions? Enjoy that. Yeah, that's a very real thing. To this day, I still check any boots I'm wearing and I live out in the suburbs, but anytime I go outside, anything, anytime I'm reaching for any pair of my boots, just out of habit, I will check for scorpion. Like, I'm not literally checking for scorpions, but that's just what I was taught when I was really little, is that anytime you put any of your shoes on in high desert, you always check for anything. If a snake got in there, if it's a scorpion. When I lived in Texas, we had to check for those June beetle things that look I don't know if that's the name of them. I think that is, but they're the Texas version of what looks like those old Egyptian beetles. They're like those sort of shiny rainbow colored ones, bit smaller but similar in texture, and those like to nest in your boots if you're not careful about where you're putting in them. They're not really dangerous, but they just feel weird when your foot touches on but yeah, growing up, I did see a few of my friends go through scorpion bites, recovering from them, and they're not fun. I luckily never had that experience. I did cross paths with rattlers every once in a while, but not close enough to where my life was endangered or anything. But that's also another thing of like, it's the environment, so you're raised up on what to do if you do cross paths with them, that kind of thing. But anyway, my brother was saying that when he was in this hospital building with my grandma, and they said that they wanted her to go see some other specialist or other up on the 7th floor, and he felt those tremors earlier. He was just like, this is not a place where I want to be 7 floors up right now. But he's like, obviously I'm going to get her the care she needs. So he's like, yeah, I mean, I did it, but he's like, I was a little bit nervous, not gonna lie. But yeah, he was telling me this kind of again, not really like funny, haha, like this is all jokes, but kind of funny how it played out. He was mentioning that they had my grandma in a neck brace after they transferred her to her room. Once she was in intake and everything, she had started mentioning that she was having some discomfort from the brace. So my brother a few times went out and because I guess they were trying to do the call button, but I guess they couldn't get a hold of anybody for a while. So my brother went out in the hall and talked to one of the nurses that was there, and eventually they were able to get a nurse to come in. But my brother commented that the first nurse they sent in looked pretty young. I'm guessing she was probably like, maybe like first year or something like that, because they probably figured it just needed like a adjustment or something like that. But after the first nurse looked at it and tried to adjust the setting a little bit, within a few minutes my grandma was saying again, no, it still hurts. And so a few more times my brother was trying to get a hold of nurses, and they would send somebody in and they would do basically what the first nurse did, but a little bit extra, I guess. And so he looks over at my grandma, and she's not saying anything anymore, but she's near in tears from the pressure. And so he's getting frustrated, and so he said that he's like, he's like, I didn't want to go off, but I was panicking, and I felt bad. Like my grandma's sitting there tearing up, and I just wanted answers. And so he said he got a little bit vocal with the nurses, and was basically like, can somebody come in here and fix this fucking brace? Because my brother is retired Army, so that comes out sometimes. So he said after he had done that, a few minutes later, one of the you could immediately tell was like one of the old seasoned nurses. He said she didn't even get all the way in the room, took a look at my grandma and said, that brace is upside down. And so, it was like, and I'm kind of cracking up with this story. My brother is just like, it was just one of those moments where you're like, are you fucking kidding me, with everything else going on? But the seasoned nurse, she immediately got it flipped around, and pretty soon had my grandma smiling and was like, oh yeah, that's much better, thank you so much. So yeah, from what I understand, grandma's she's good. Like I mentioned in the other video I uploaded, she's coherent. It's a lot of physical therapy she's looking at. In the immediate future, in the next few weeks, they're going to be monitoring her bruises, still making sure, because she's going to stay in the hospital for a little bit. From what I understand, she's going to do the hospital stay for a little bit. They're going to monitor, make sure she didn't have any internal bleeding they didn't catch before, or she doesn't develop an infection from anything, all that kind of good stuff. So once they deem her good to go, safe to move, safe to transfer, all of that, I guess the plan is that because the doctors that took a look at her said that she's going to need like months worth of extensive physical therapy with the neck and everything, my brother and my aunts and uncles kind of did a powwow and decided that they're gonna send her over to a really nice facility, like rehab facility, for a little while to do all that, because my brother was saying that he's like, obviously I don't want to put her in a home if it's not necessary, but he was like, I also, because of the extensiveness of the injuries, he's like, if something happens, I'm not medically trained, I don't want to waste any time if something needs to be looked at. He's like, I feel much better if she's in a place where there are medical professionals immediately there that can answer her within minutes. So with what it looks like is that I'm guessing, I don't know all the financial details, but I'm guessing between my aunts and uncles, a number of them have done pretty well for themselves in life, and are living pretty comfortably for the most part. I feel like everybody economically probably right now is sweating a little bit, but they're a little bit more comfortable than most, I guess I would say. So between them, and also my grandpa left, my grandpa pinched pennies his entire life, from what I remember. I remember my grandpa, he had these huge like financial ledgers. They looked like in the early 2000s, I used to work in luxury hotel management, and it was a little bit before online registration and online booking really took off. At the time I was doing it, we were still kind of doing partially online, partially reservations done in this massive ledger that I had to write in by hand, and it took up like, it was it looked like some kind of big old Harry Potter book that I had to do all the reservations in and put everybody's information in, and I had to like open up like I was the book of lore to find people's reservations. Those giant books you see on like genealogy shows sometimes. My grandpa had books that size, but they were just financial ledgers, and he would put in everything to the penny of what he would spend every day by the week, and he had them logged every year. And it was something that he actually really liked. He was really into the mathematics of budgeting and saving money and all that. And also, my grandparents were Depression era kids. And, they grew up in World War II. Well, not grew up in World War II, but like they went through World War II and all that. So it was all in that mentality. So he was always really careful with his money during his lifetime. And because of that, when he passed, my grandma found out that he had put a nice little nest egg away for her so that she would never have to worry about working. After he was gone, she was never going to be financially stuck because of all of his years of pinching pennies left and right and putting all of his savings away for her. And also he did like investments as he got more and more, financially stable in life. And he went through the military and got promotions and then had like a nice retirement and all that. He was, even with the comfy retirement and all that, he was still doing the budgeting. Like that never stopped to the day he died. And a lot of his drive, even he told me, was that he wanted to make sure that grandma never suffered if anything happened to him, which it turned out he did go first. So it's really cool that he did that because as he wanted, she's never had to stress about money too much since he did all that for her. Because like I said, they both lived really modestly their whole lives, and my grandma's still like that. Like as long as she has her little comforts, like the utilities are taken care of and her internet is paid, she has her iPad and her little coffee and I would say her paper, but I think even her paper she reads on the iPad now. She doesn't really go clothes shopping anymore. She just wears what she has. So yeah, like her needs day to day are very minimal financially. So yeah, I think between the savings she has and like I'm guessing whatever insurance and then like all of the whatever my aunts and uncles are going to chip in with, they got their, I don't know that they already, I'm guessing they're on the way to having it set up, because from what it sounds like, she's going to be in the hospital, like the standard hospital, for a little bit, but while she's in there, they're going to get it set up to where they can move her to one of the super nice rehab centers, physical rehab. Okay, sorry about that. I got a thing on my phone that said I was running out of storage. So I had to move some video footage real quick. So I was saying that I can understand and empathize with grandma, because having been through it myself, I know that physical therapy can really suck. Yes, it's important, and yes, it's vital when you have that kind of injury, but there is a mental aspect to physical therapy, because you're going through this process where you have days where you feel like the cure is almost worse than the condition, because it hurts like hell to do the exercises and things that they say are going to heal you, and you're trying to do it, you're trying to make your body better, but when you have those kind of injuries, like the body just, because I've had to go through it with with hypermobility, I've had multiple dislocations in my body, and having to heal from dislocations is really painful, because you have all the nerve endings everywhere around your joint areas. I mean, obviously it's across your whole body, but they are especially concentrated around your nerve or your joint areas. And so when you're trying to do exercises and movements that the specialists are saying are going to help you, it's you do have periods where you want to be like, man, screw this, because it's exhausting. Like, you want to be healed, but you also just want your body to do what it's supposed to do. And you have that mental frustration of, why can't it just be a body, like a normal, healthy body? Why do I got to go through all this? And you also go through the mental fatigue of having days where you almost don't want to fight it anymore. And you have those days where it's just kind of like, I'm tired of being tired. And it's very low mental health days where you do feel really in a dark place sometimes, because you just want to live normally and you want to be able to do the things that you see everybody else do, but your body is just like, nah. And even now, just day to day, sometimes I have moments of that. For the most part, I do try to stay very positive and as upbeat as I can, because I do know the beneficial impact of that on my overall health, to see the good side of things and to be appreciative of all of the good aspects and the mobility I do still have. That, because like my parents used to say, or remind me of, when you're growing up, like, I'm sure your parents probably did it too, where your parents will always remind you, no matter how bad you think your situation is, there's always somebody worse off, which sounds like a very parent thing to say, but it does end up being true. That you think that your issues feel insurmountable, but then you'll see somebody who has way less than you do and they're just trucking along. So I always try to remember that. Anytime with any of my mobility issues, I get to a place where I start to feel a little bit dark about it and just like really fatigued, I let myself have that mental space for a little bit, because it's normal. It's not every day. Like I said, most days I'm pretty upbeat about things and pretty positive, and I can see the good and the humor in a lot. Sorry, my voice is starting to go. In a lot of things, and I can see the bright side a lot. But I'm human, and there are days where my body is physically tired, and mentally I'm tired of my body being physically tired and always having to fight that. And I'll have days where I just want to feel like, screw this, I'm tired of having this battle every damn day. But it's passing. It's a weather storm in the mind, like you see outside. A lot of days are going to be sunny. Every so often the clouds are going to build, but eventually the clouds pass, the storm passes, and you get your sun back. So it's kind of like that in the brain too, as long as you work at it. And having been through that process myself and having that be my day-to-day, I do worry about how that's going to be for Grandma, because I know she already carries a level of depression from a number of things that have happened in her life. And physical therapy is really hard, and it's really mentally exhausting, which is an aspect that doesn't get talked about a lot. A lot of people just talk about the physical part of it, but there is a mental aspect that kicks your ass from time to time as well. So, with Grandma being the age she is, I worry about her being like, I don't want to do this. But she's a pretty optimistic person herself, most days. Even with her depressive moments, she still tries really hard to see the good in things. But yeah, it being family, I just worry about her in that aspect. But that's also one reason why my brother was saying it'd be good to get her into as nice a place as possible, because he's like, she's gonna get in there and they're gonna do things that are comfortably within her range, I'm sure, and she'll just be in there having herself a little spa vacation, and she'll be getting her therapy she needs to get done, but also we'll have her in a place that's super nice and super comfy. and it'll be as smooth a process as we can possibly make it for her. And then once she's all done and strong again, she'll come back home and she'll be all good. So yeah, I'm trying to focus on that. That's what ended up happening to Grandma in a nutshell. And we're still not entirely sure what caused the fall. The theory I'm hearing as most probable, is that she likely had some sort of change, like a drop in blood pressure or something, that gave her some momentary dizziness, and she just fell from that, I'm guessing. I don't know. Random things like that happen sometimes, but the whole story made me nervous, especially when my brother got to the blood clot part, because that's what ended up taking out my great grandma. This grandma that I'm talking about now, her mom was another one of those strong women in my family. Years ago, she passed back in the 80s, but she was another one who, up into her 80s, she was living independently, had her own apartment, took public transport everywhere, had her circle of friends, and was, active, coherent, everything. Living herself a good little single lady's life into her 80s. And then this is my great grandmother. She just randomly had one day where she went into her bathroom to go take a shower. She came out of the shower, but then in the process of stepping out of the shower, slipped on some condensation in the bathroom, took a fall on the bathroom floor, and at first she ended up fracturing her hip. And at first they thought that's all it was going to be, that they would just heal her for the hip fracture. She didn't initially appear to have any other major incidents or injuries or anything from the fall, similar to what was going on with my grandma. She managed to, I think she might have had some form of like the call button or fall thing or something like that. She had some way where she was able to get a hold of somebody, and they came over and found her. Maybe she was close enough to the phone. I don't know. I was 4 when she passed, so I don't remember all the details. I'm just going off of the story that was passed down in my family after she passed, and they were trying to explain it to me as best they could for a little kid. And to this day, this is what I vaguely understand happened, is that she had a fall. Somebody came over, and when they did the initial exam on her, as far as the EMTs coming over, they did the initial exam as far as like checking her for any head trauma, anything like that, and they didn't see any evidence of that. When they got her to the hospital, again, all of her tests came back fine as far as they could find, except for, she had fractured the hip that she had fallen on. So they thought they were just going to treat her for that. But while she was in the hospital for the hip fracture, she ended up having a blood clot in her leg that escaped as a result of that fracture. And that blood clot ended up moving its way to her heart. And that's what ended up taking her out. So when my brother told me that they had found a massive blood clot, that was my big memory jump and fear of like, oh my God, no. But no, he said that it didn't seem like it was going to be problematic, that they were going to be able to treat it okay. They just got lucky and found it in the process of everything else. Yeah, we'll see what goes on the next few months, and I'm sure Grandma's going to bounce back fine. It's just going to be a little bit of a long process for her, but knowing my grandma and knowing her attitude, I'm kind of wondering how she's doing inside of her head, if she's just in there just like, damn it, because it's going to interrupt her day to day. But y'all, this is one reason why I try to take care of my body as much as I can, even with hypermobility and lymphedema and everything going on. I try to keep myself as strong as possible. I try to keep my diet as regulated as possible. This is a big reason why, because I have that woman's DNA inside me. So, you know, on the off chance. And the other thing I'm thinking is that I have a pretty extended family, because I think I mentioned my grandma had 10 kids. Three of them have passed. 7 of them are still living. And all of them, I'm pretty sure, I think my eldest uncle, I don't think he had any biological children. He has like stepchildren with his wife he's married to now, her children from other relationships. But other than him, I'm pretty sure all the other kids from my grandma had kids. So yeah, I have a pretty extensive family just on that side. There's also a sizable amount on my dad's side too, but especially my mom's side, there's a lot of relatives. And whenever we get together, I always get the comments that of pretty much anybody in the family, everybody says I seem to resemble my grandma the most as far as general features and personality and everything. They not necessarily like a carbon copy, but they're like, of anybody, you got her genes the most, I think. So with that in mind, I just, on the off chance that I myself go to 9900 whatever, I want to take care of myself as much as possible so that I'm as comfortable as possible if I'm going to be doing the whole century thing. Yeah, because I'm like, you know, I want to keep it going as long as possible and not have any more issues than I need to. But, you know, everybody's got their checkout date. We don't know when it is. But yeah, just in case. This is why I try to take care of myself. And try to, you know, do as much walking and outdoorsy stuff as I can manage, and still try to do exercises and things that are still within my range, and, you know, not eat too much fast food and all of those things. Not only to be kinder to my body in general, just for my own sake, but because I have that woman's DNA stamped somewhere in me. So yeah, that's the story of Grandma. Ended up finishing this one, so I'll give you a little close-up look of this. But yeah, since this is done, there's a tiny bit of daylight left, so I may go ahead and go do the what do you call it? The completion reel on this one. I just finished the 2023 roundup. Eventually I'll get to last year's. The roundup for all the canvases I did in 2023. I'm trying to get caught up on that. So by the time you see this video, that video will already be posted, I'm sure. And I'll probably post the completion reel for this one first. Maybe on the same time or same day as the 2023 video going up, and then this one will probably be the next one after that. But this is a whip and chat, so it's gonna be a little bit longer. It's gonna be a little bit more to edit, so this will probably be another day, but pretty soon. So whenever you see this, thanks for stopping by, and we will talk soon.